Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kostuba. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from the beautiful island of Manhattan, New York City. This is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kostuba Das. Welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome to Thursday's study of the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's the book. It's the cream of the crop. It's how to connect the jiva to the divine. Being a spirit soul lost in the material world, we're here to reach out and reconnect. Do this every morning. If you're listening to this, if you want to join us live on Zoom, we got about 80 people on Zoom this morning, and this podcast goes up to about 15,000 or so every day. Got Miss Mara here working the dials back home at the farm, and I am getting ready to record the audiobook today, Kostuba, going into the studio into Brooklyn.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
You looking forward to that? It sounds like a nice engagement, just reading it.
Just
Sitting in
reading.
this quiet studio and
I
just
hope I don't get to
reading
this
out
point
loud.
where, like, wait a second, I didn't mean to say that.
Too
Like,
late.
it's too
Okay,
late.
if I change it a little.
Go to print. How are you? How's Mayapur doing? Kostuba's live in India.
Rainy. Beautiful, beautiful rainy day.
Okay. All right. Well, any announcements, Miss Mara? What's it like being there without me? Is it?
Sorry to say, but we had a lot of fun last night. Tarun came up with a scavenger hunt. It was really fun. It was an impressive little hunt. Yeah.
Huh.
I ran
do you-
around
what do you
finding
win
his
at the-
clues.
What do you win at the end?
Nothing.
Oh.
He's got to work on that part of it.
Okay, yeah, he's got to work on the prize.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
I was saying, Mara looks good here today. She's got she's framed, nicely centered, you know, in the frame. She's not just kind of squeezing in around.
Well,
the
maybe I
edge.
should just stay here at my mom's house here in New York.
I wasn't implying anything like
Oh, come on.
I slept on the
brother, we
couch
miss
last
you.
night. I had the best sleep of my life. I
that.
was out cold.
We do better apart.
Yeah.
All right. I have some announcements, though. We have back to recovery group meetings at noon and 1:30 today, Eastern time. And tomorrow morning, 10:30 a.m. is Cult of Cain, Josh Kane's asana class for our Patreon members.
Okay. Do they actually really call it Cult of Cain, or is that just Raghunath's thing?
I think we made it up. Yeah.
But now they do.
It's stuck.
And now there's all these cult initiation rites to get in.
I knew that would happen.
Cults. Okay. Shall we continue on?
Yeah.
Put my bead back down.
You're
Thought I
moving
could
a little slow here.
pull that.
Without Mara in your life providing a little warm drink for you, and I don't know, you're just moving a
I'm
little
lost.
slower.
I'm lost. I move slower. Okay. Well, we have a little good morning nugget for everybody.
Yeah. Who's it
It's
from?
from Irvin D. Yalom.
Say that again.
You know who that is?
I do.
Irvin D. Yalom.
Is that how you
Do you know who
pronounce
that
it?
is?
Yalom?
Yalom.
He's an American existential psychiatrist who is Emeritus Professor of Psychiatry at Stanford University, as well as author of both fiction and nonfiction.
Right. They're going to be
What does he
quoting
say?
you, Kostuba, one day. Some wisdom of the sages in the future. This is from Kostuba Das. He
Never
was a
know.
street punk turned Hare Krishna, got stabbed in the chest when he was in 8th grade.
Stabbed in the chest. I was in 8th grade. Oh, Krishna.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
If we
let's hear it.
climb high enough, we will reach a height from which tragedy ceases to look tragic.
Okay, we're back on tragedy
is-
again.
This is so wisdom of the sages, isn't it?
Yes.
If we climb high enough, we will reach a height from which tragedy ceases to look tragic.
I mean, we would say zoom out, right?
We say zoom. You know what? I had to really zoom out yesterday, Prabhu,
What happened?
because I decided, I got off the train and I walked down here. My mom lives down
from 33rd Street or whatever?
Yeah, and I just
Station?
decided, you know what? I'm
It's
gonna
a long
walk.
walk.
It's a long walk, pulling a little carry-on suitcase with me, but it was a good walk.
You pulled the suitcase the whole way down there.
Well, a little carry-on thing. Yes, I
That
did.
would have
Got
been
a little
enough for me to
backpack.
say I'm not walking it. But go ahead.
Well,
Continue.
you know what? I have a secret on my bucket list. I'm not going to share with you that I want to do. So these walks
Are part of that?
help. Anyway, let me just get on. I took the skyline down, or the what is it called? The
High Line.
High Line. Took the High Line down, and walked down the West Side Park.
Yeah, the kind of walking and bike path that goes along the river.
Yeah. First, I walked through my old neighborhood where I used to live in the West Village, and I've lived in New York in the '80s, right? I was 18, 19. Then I moved back there in the '90s.
90s.
When
Yeah.
Shelter or Mantra came out. Then I lived there in 2003 with my kids when they were little and my family. And I've
Now here
visited
you
there
are
for
at
so
another
long.
stage of life.
Yeah, it's one of these things. It's like you go to places and they have thousands of memories, joyous memories. Like my children were little children walking my kids to school. Tragic memories when my marriage was at its all-time low at one point, where I was just in tears so many times.
Yeah.
Fond memories when I was playing in a band in New York City, mixed with some maybe bitterness of what was going on at
That time you met Elvis Costello in the park and he ignored you.
That time I met Elvis Costello in the park and he ignored me. It was snobby. Yeah, that time also. The time I met the Wolverine guy in the park. It's just like just being in that place brought up so much emotion and feelings and sadness and reflection, and it just made me realize, like, this is such a drama. This material world is such a drama.
Let me ask a question. What did that experience? Were you glad you were going through it? Did it feel healthy to go through that, or was it just feeling like melancholy to go through that?
Well, mixed with spirituality, it was exactly what this takeaway is saying today.
Okay.
There were times in New York, for me, it was actually tragic. It was actually tragic. And the interesting thing, the tragedy was mixed with great success. Also, like that was the time I became a very big yoga teacher in New York City, but it was mixed with all this internal pain I was going through.
Right.
So it was walking through it yesterday I'm forced to zoom out. It's almost 20 years later, and it's not part of my life really in New York City anymore, and I'm a lot older, so I'm forced to zoom out and just reflect, and it just makes me realize it's like the whole Mahabharata or a soap opera had just been played out, and the real track is the real training is, can you just keep your train on the tracks while all the drama goes on around you? And can you not be so pulled by that drama where you're pulled so hard it pulls you right off the road and throws you down a cliff? That was sort of my thing. It wasn't that it was either good times or bad times. It was just times. And Yeah, it was times like yesterday walking here. It was like, I'm glad I'm on a spiritual path, or else it just seems like a big random mess.
I think, you know, I'm no expert, but from what I pick up and everything, probably more than any other time in history, just due, we've in the name of freedom, in the name of progress, we've done certain things to some fundamental ideas, particularly around family, probably, but also around occupation and so on. That we've eaten away at some of the things that provide us a certain type of stability, a certain type of, and that goes to our mental stability. So I think people suffer mentally maybe more than ever before. And I get you 100%, Raghunath, that if we didn't have some spiritual lens to view life through, tragedy certainly, even just a sense of meaninglessness can just be crushing over time, like, what
Yes,
am I doing here?
yes.
There's no meaning to any of that. I think a lot of people feel that, feel it deeply. And
People
so
criticize. Okay, go on. Sorry.
well, no, you go ahead.
I was saying people criticize spirituality or God and worship of God and stuff like that, but a- at the very least, to frame out an existence that there is something much bigger going on,
Sure.
it's the best psychotherapy you could do. That there's a reason for the things that we're going in. We're meant to be climbing higher. Stay focused on your spiritual journey through it all. It's the most relieving. I mean, people are laying on a psychiatric couch and
Paying
ending up
money,
with
doing drugs.
nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It-
Yeah. How can I go on? There's no meaning. Every morning I wake up and I just think,
a sense of
I'm gonna go do
purposelessness.
this again, another day of meaninglessness, and just, yeah, it can be crushing. What we're reading now is King Chitraketu. We wanted to find out um, how Vritrasura, who was born in the demon lineage, looked and apparently was a demon, but then it was revealed that he had the deepest spiritual insights of a divine bhakti yogi. How did that happen? That was the question. And to get the answer, we had to go back in time, back into his previous life where he's King Chitraketu. And there we see, he's got, we were talking about this yesterday, that sometimes Bhagavatam can speak in a poetic way,
Yeah.
can instruct in a poetic way. And it said that he had millions, I think it said he had 10 million wives or something like that. I was reading up on that more. And another way to understand that is that he had like 10 million desires, like he was full of millions of desires,
Hmm.
like as we all are, in different ways. And but none of them could fulfill him. He was still suffering. He had his mind, his heart so set on having a son. And then he finally got that son. And when he got that son, it was just like the joy in his life just skyrocketed, right? He went from low to like way up high. And then before he knew it, so quickly, as quickly as his joy came, he was crushed with the loss of his son. And we're going to read a little bit more today about just how crushed he was. And when we read this, sometimes, I think people do go through it. Like it may be something, it could be a tragedy like the loss of a loved one. It can even be like it can be the breaking of a relationship that's very important to us. Sometimes it can be like an economic thing, like my business just crashed, where people almost like even literally they're brought to their knees, and the suffering feels like they're drowning, drowning in sorrow, drowning in confusion. I think it's not only not rare, it's almost common, like that we get pushed to such a level.
Well, we appear so different in so many ways, but we're all going through these same life scenarios:
Yeah,
that betrayal, the heartbreak, the falling in love, the birth of a child, the death
right.
of a loved one, the economic collapse. It's like a reoccurring theme.
Yeah.
And here we dive into this one. A person wants something more than anything in this world, and then he gets it. And it's and it, instead of that thing fulfilling all the desires, it destroys it breaks the person down.
Right.
And so again, we're seeing ourselves in all these stories. As fantastic as these stories were, sort of like out of context, a king, a kingdom, wives, it seems so foreign, but the themes reoccur.
Very, very familiar.
Yeah, and I challenge us to see ourselves in these themes that are going on in the Bhagavatam. What have I desired? What I've
Yeah.
really desired hard, that I've received and didn't give me what I actually wanted.
Yeah, I mean, like everyone wants love, most essentially, right? And especially we dream of it in the context of a romantic love that will fulfill us, and we may wait a long time for that, and then we finally get it, and then we lose it. Oh, you know, it can be so crushing for people. What I'm loving about this, we're about to go into two chapters that are just chock full of insights into how to zoom out in life, how to get far enough away from from the tragedy that it ceases to look tragic, how to zoom out enough and see life in a, I'm going to go ahead and give a spoiler, but it's just so cool what the Bhagavatam does here. In the next two chapters, he's going to just be crushed. The king is going to be just crushed. And then two sages are going to come visit him. One is Angira and one is Narda, but they come in disguise. And so he doesn't recognize them at first, but they give him such, he just turns to them and says, instruct me, help me. And they give him such pertinent, such deep insights into life.
Mm.
And he starts to wake up and he starts to recover. And then the most mind-blowing thing happens is Narda, with his, you said that nobody's got a monopoly on miracles. Narda brings his little boy son. I mean, how old? This kid was like an infant.
No.
Narda brings him back to life. The soul of the baby re-enters the same body, wakes up, and begins to speak. And it's
that's the Krishna miracle.
There's a big Krishna miracle.
It's a miracle. We have miracles here in this tradition.
You want miracles? We got miracles. And the thing is, when someone is in the midst of that deep grief, it can be difficult to speak the truth right then. Hey, everything's transitory. Hey, this is not your child anyway, But what happens is the child says it himself, right? Like the child could say, you're telling me these are my parents? How are these my parents?
Don't spoil this. Don't spoil this.
But I'm just saying, it won't spoil it. I don't think it'll spoil it. But it is when the child says it, the parents can only hear it and say, "Oh my God!" Like they have to accept. And what this experience is so powerful for Chitraketu. He's given the instructions of those sages. He's given the instructions of his own son speaking this truth back in an infant's body. Then this infant was not mine. So clear. And then he's given a meditation by Narda. And that meditation is so clear and so powerful and so potent that he sees Krishna, he sees Vishnu. And that was the beginning of his powerful trajectory forward. So it's really, really great stuff that that we're coming up with. We may not have that experience. We may not have our own child wake up and start to instruct us. So we may not have two A-list sages walk right in, but it's a combination of tragedy plus spiritual instruction. These two together create a formula for detachment and insight and wisdom that is there for us in all of our lives if we're eager for it. The tragedy will come.
Or else the material world is just tragic.
We don't go anywhere.
Nobody gets a pass.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Since Mara's
to
not
pick up?
here setting up my computer, I have no idea
Oh,
where
dear.
we are, but I'm going to start with the prayers and then Mara can instruct me afterwards. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaivanarottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam madirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord Narayan. Unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nastaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya Bhagavati Utamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. A regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotees, all that is troublesome to the heart will become eradicated, and loving service to the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, will be established as an irrevocable fact. Om Agyanam Timarandasya Agyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumidatam Nena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My teachers are opening my eyes with a torchlight of knowledge. I offer my obeisances at their lotus feet. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Mara, where are we at?
Canto 6, chapter 14, text 49.
Okay.
Text 49.
Now,
Yeah.
interesting little recap if you missed yesterday's show. King wanted to have a baby, couldn't have a baby, meets a sage. The sage says, okay, you want to have a baby? Okay, you can have a baby. You have to do this. You have to take the sweet rice. You have to put it in the fire. You have to say these mantras. You have to have this whole mystical, magical ritual. Have your wife drink the sweet rice. And then magically she gets pregnant. All the other co-wives, he had a few wives, all the other co-wives, as the child grows and as everybody loves this child and the father loves him and the mother loves him and the citizens love him because he's the heir to the throne and the uncles and the aunts, everybody loves this child except these co-wives. These co-wives are really getting minimized by the king because he's, like every parent, they get obsessed with the child. And so out of their envy in their heart, they decided, you know what, this kid is causing us all the problems. Let's
take
kill
him
the
out.
kid. So they killed the child with poison. And we were at this place, right, where they woke up the child, where they tried to wake up the child and then realized he's dead. Tragedy. It's tragedy. It's a tragedy. Anyway, that's where we left off, right?
Yes. So everybody's crying now. King Chitraketu has yet to learn of his son's death. That's about to come.
Oh, boy. Oh, text 49. Hearing the loud crying, all the inhabitants of the palace came, both men and women. Being equally aggrieved, they also began to cry. It's a whole scene here. The queens who administered the poison, right? These are the ones who actually killed the child. They also cried pretentiously, knowing full well of their offense.
Just see what world we live in.
We're living in. Can't trust anybody. Can't even trust a co-wife. When King Chitraketu heard of his son's death from an unknown cause, he became almost blind. Because of this great affection for his son, his lamentation grew like a blazing fire. And as he went to see the child who was dead, he kept slipping and falling to the ground. Yeah, they say it's the most tragic thing for a parent who lost a child. You can't imagine it.
Right.
Surrounded by his ministers and other officers and the learned Brahmins present, the king approached and fell unconscious at the child's feet, his hair and dress scattered. So he's lost all composure now.
Yes.
When the king...
He's drowning in
morose,
sorrow,
sadness,
grief.
When the king, breathing heavily, regained his consciousness, his eyes were tearful and he could not speak.
Now, let's remember, when the sage Angira provided, through his ritual, provided the sweet rice that he knew would result in the birth of the child, he said that this child, he actually named the child. This became the child's name. He said, your child will be Harsha Shoka. which literally means will bring both joy and sorrow, right?
The king sort of wrote
And
it off, right?
he kind of wrote it off like, yeah, every child's going to bring some sorrow, but especially the child's bringing joy. Now we're seeing that this child is bringing intense sorrow, and but in one sense, there's a message for us there too, that what we think will bring us the greatest joy. That hope that we have in our mind, try to see it as harsha shoka, right? If it's not something that we're finding within, if it's not a happiness that we find by the arousal of our true inner spiritual nature, then we can understand that if it's harsha, it's also shoka. That it's like a coin that has both sides of that. So for him, I mean, it's really brutal because the child was so young. He was, and so quickly, it brought him not just sorrow but intense grief. Yeah. So he's in it right now, and he's like he's drowning in it.
Okay, text 52. When the queen saw her husband, King Chintraketu, merged in great lamentation and saw the dead child, who was the only son in the family, she lamented in various ways. This increased the pain in the crores, like hundreds of thousands of
No, in the
pain.
course, not
in the
crores.
course.
But it could be
I thought
crores
it was an
too,
Indian
because
measurement. A crore. This increased the pain in the cores of their hearts.
in the cores of the crores of the inhabitants of the palace.
The ministers and all the Brahmins came. So everybody's rushing to this room. What's going on in here? The garland of flowers decorating the queen's head fell off, and her hair scattered. Falling tears melted to the collyrium on her eyes and moistened
mascara, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, and moistened her breasts, which were covered with kumkum powder. As she lamented the loss of her son, her loud crying resembled the sweet sound of a karari bird. I don't know what that sounds like, but I bet you could find it on Google.
Let's hear what you think that sounds like, or not. It's some kind of weeping. Something like that.
Of a sadness.
And when a woman cries and her mascara is just spreading all over, it's just like, oh man, she's just in so much grief at this point. It just makes it that much more vivid,
right.
The pain. Now, this next verse, Raghunath, is a very interesting one. I think we need to spend a little bit of time with text 54.
Alas, O Providence, Creator, you are certainly inexperienced in creation, for during the lifetime of a father, you have caused the death of his son. Thus, acting in opposition to your creative laws, if you are determined to contradict these laws, you are certainly the enemy of the living entities and are never very merciful. Okay. So he's speaking to providence, fate.
Yeah, do you know what? I looked up the word providence.
Yeah.
The protective care of God or of nature as a spiritual power. Okay. Interesting, right? So people have faith that whether it's a faith in a personal God or whether it's a more general, or in a sense maybe a vaguer type of faith in nature, in the universe, that there is some kind of protective care that exists as an element of the universal order. She's turning to that God or to nature and saying, look, this isn't the way it's supposed to work. The son's supposed to die after the father. And if this is the nature of your care, well, then you're actually the enemy of people. You're not the friend. So it comes down to this, is that in that moment of tragedy, in that moment of grief that she's in, there's an opportunity in that moment. There's or let's say even coming out of that moment, because even in the moment it may be very difficult, but rising out of that moment is the opportunity for a deeper understanding of reality, um, that's just waiting for. But something breaks in that moment of grief, and this is where we really need the help of wisdom. We really need the help of the guidance of mentors, of sacred text, because one of two things can break. Your faith in God can break. That's what's happening to her right now. That's her response. God, if you exist at all, then you're our enemy. How could you put us through this experience? Or so maybe the faith in God breaks, but what's the design is what really, if we can be harmonize ourselves with the design of God or the design of providence or the design of nature, really what's meant to break is our faith in the promise of happiness presented by the material world, by the illusory nature of the material world. That's what's meant to break right there, So that's the key, whether it becomes a moment of something that will nurture bitterness, further removal from our connection with the divine source of love that is our the great benediction that we have in life. It can break that, but really what it's meant to break is that idea. All of my ideas of where I'm going to find happiness materially, ultimately they're empty. Let that break,
And that's what the material world really does.
Yeah.
It just chips away.
So she's going to continue with this line of thinking.
Okay. Text 53.
Five.
Oh, without Mara here, I cannot move this thing. I've become too dependent, Mara. My lord, you may say that there is no law that a father must die in the lifetime of his son, and that a son must be born in the lifetime of his father, since everyone lives and dies according to his own fruit of activity. However, if fruit of activity is so strong that birth and death depend on it, there's no need of a controller or God again. If you say that a controller is needed because the material energy does not have the power to act, one may answer that if the bonds of affection you have created are disturbed by fruit of action, no one will raise children with affection. Instead, everyone will cruelly neglect their children. Since you have cut the bonds of affection that compel a parent to raise a child, you appear experienced and unintelligent.
So the phrase fruit of activity it's just a translation of the word karma, right? So it's saying either get control, dear God, dear providence, get control of this. If you're saying that, oh no, don't blame it on me, it's all karma that's doing this. Well, karma is meant to be serving a purpose, and the way that seems like the way that you've got karma lined up right now, if everyone is going to respond to this, they're going to respond, oh, I better not become affectionate to my children, I'm going to suffer like crazy. So how is this? I don't see how this is working for our good. Text 56.
My dear son, I am helpless and very much aggrieved. You should not give up my company. Just look at your lamenting father. We are helpless because without a son, we shall have to suffer the distress of going to the darkest, hellish regions. You are the only hope by which we can get out of these dark regions. Therefore, I request you not to go any further with the merciless Yama, Lord of Death.
Don't die. Although he's
so
already dead.
There's this idea that the son lives in this world performing pious activities and helps the parent when they die.
The word son, actually putra, has to do with that, right? I think put refers to like hell. Putra means they deliver one from hell. That by the dharmic merit of the son, it grants spiritual merit to the parents and to the forefathers.
My dear son, you have slept a long time. Now please get up. So father's losing his mind now. He's talking to the dead body.
This is
Now
still the
get up.
mother, I believe.
Oh, this is the mother. I'm sorry. My dear son, you have slept a long time. Now please get up. Your playmates are calling you to play. Since you must be very hungry, please get up, suck my breasts, and dissipate our lamentation.
Yeah, definitely the queen.
My dear son, I am certainly most fortunate. Yeah, that was definitely the mother. Is that what you said?
Took a little while for that dime to drop.
Hare Krishna. My dear son, I am certainly most unfortunate, for I can no longer see your mild smiling. You have closed your eyes forever. I therefore conclude that you have been taken from this planet to another, from which you will not return. My dear son, I can no longer hear your pleasing voice. It's interesting that they actually have the framework that he is not dead. The soul is on some other planet, somewhere else. They have that framework. We're not going to escape still the pain of not having our child with us.
Yeah.
It's the toughest thing. You must know people growing up who've lost a child, Kostub. You ever have a kid in high school that dies? Did that happen in your school?
I don't remember that. I mean, I probably did, but I don't remember it.
Yeah.
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 Like, it was always the same. It's like a drunk driving or something.
Yeah, exactly. Car accident on New Year's Eve. It was like,
oh my God. Yeah, it's like one of these things, like a teenager is so filled with ego that they do the most foolish things. Right? Weren't we talking about this yesterday, Mara?
Yeah, we were. And also, you know, it's like the driver survived and the drunk driver survived and the kids one of the kids in the car died.
That's the kind of thing to get you saying Providence, you know.
Yeah. Screaming, why me?
Yeah.
I told you about this guy I knew that had a daughter that died. And I just met him not that long. I met him, but his daughter had obviously died maybe 15 years previously. And even though I was just staying with him for a weekend, I was doing some yoga festival. I was staying with him for a weekend, and I saw pictures of this daughter around the house. And I said, "Is that your daughter?" He goes, "Well, it was my daughter." And then he told how she had died in a car accident. And he just had a book of why did it happen? Why this time? Why this place? Why didn't the emergency get there in time? Why didn't she have a phone? Why was she out there? What if she didn't go there at that moment? What if she was just like 5 minutes late? What made her be on time? And you could just tell,
to kill you, right? Torture
it is material world. When there's tragedy, it's haunting. There was a million other, and this was 15 years after her passing, a million little, what if she didn't do this? And it comes down to why fate? Why did this happen? And it's exactly where the mother and father are right now. And I don't think that pain does go away so easily, but at least as we zoom out, and at least as we have an understanding of benevolence, a benevolent force, a benevolent purpose, a direction that we're being led, there can be some solace there. Otherwise, the material world is just random pain and joy.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it.
I couldn't do it. Chapu shared this from the commentary to the verse. Prabhupada wrote, "The subtle laws of karma, which are controlled by the Supreme, cannot be understood by ordinary conditioned souls. Therefore, Krishna says that one who can understand him and how he is acting, controlling everything by subtle laws, immediately becomes freed by his grace." So again, the tragedy is meant to crack our faith that I'm going to find happiness in this world. And when that's cracked, the mind, the heart become open to help me make sense of this. And right as the king is there, right as he's cracked wide open, then Angira and Narada are going to come. And they're going to fill that opening with truth. And again, that's the beginning of his spiritual trajectory to becoming the Vritrasura who we heard praying on the battlefield with, you know, missing arms and bleeding all over the place, and nothing in his heart but pure bhakti.
You know, it also appears on the surface as tragedy is also the springboard for other people's spiritual life. You know, sometimes we came into bhakti because there was a tragedy in our life, and it like forced me to go deeper into why I'm here, what is my purpose, what is my contribution. Life is so
That's the
short.
pattern.
All these things that we know, but we bury in our busyness of material existence.
You know, I don't even like to say this, but it would be naive for all of us to think that we're not going to face further tragedy in our life.
I know it's you don't want to think that, but of
Yeah.
course it's tragic.
And it's hearing like this, discussing this, talking about this, that can give us the power, the freedom, the ability to, when that moment comes, that we open ourselves to, as you're saying, a springboard. We open ourselves to this, that seed of wisdom, you know, being planted deep, you know, deep within our awareness, and really transform that, you know, again, if we were, let's say we were to sit down with Vritrasura in his liberated state now, you know, in his perfected state after his death on the battlefield, let's go back into your past lifetimes and see how this worked. And he would be able to say, if you would ask him, you know, what moment changed your life? How did you go from being an ordinary person to a person with the deepest knowledge and understanding and insights of devotional love? He would say, it started when my beloved son died.
Sure.
That was it was the most painful experience I ever had, but it was right there that the path began. You know, that was the changing point. And so by hearing this, it gives us the ability to take the most tragic moments, the most grief-filled moments of our life, and allow them to become the most meaningful, powerful springboards for spirituality for us.
And unless you see that blessing, you deal with that grief, you suffer with the grief, you yell, you complain, you become bitter with that grief, and then life has to go on because it's life. Then you bury that grief and you just work in the world, and
try to forget it, try to distract,
try to distract yourself from it, bury it deep down. And this is what all these people are talking about when they talk about going to a healer and dealing with my trauma and stuff like that, because we went right, instead of dealing with it at the time, we went right into busyness and had to forget about it. Okay. Where are we on? Text 59. Accompanied by his wife, who was thus lamenting for her dead son, King Chitraketu began crying loudly with an open mouth, being greatly aggrieved. And as the king and queen lamented, all their male and female followers joined in them crying. Right? What a scene. Because of the sudden accident, all the citizens of the kingdom were almost unconscious. When the great sage Angira,
here comes the opening. Yeah, here comes
right, and here it goes.
Right in the
great
crack.
Sage, this is the original person who gave him the blessing to have the child.
Yeah.
When the great sage Angira understood that the king was almost dead in an ocean of lamentation, he went there along with another great sage, Narada Rishi.
Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 6th canto, 14th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled King Chitraketu's Lamentation.
The next chapter, the saints Narada and Angira instruct the king, right?
Yeah.
Oftentimes you don't want to be instructed when you're going through hell. You just want to go through your hell.
Or you also maybe like, help me, right?
Right.
Help
Sometimes you want to be instructed. Yes.
Yeah. You know, I always remember with the kind of, maybe not the very first, but in one sense, it was the real first kind of interview format show that we did when we brought on Ganesham Prabhu. and he was talking about his work. He's a hospital chaplain, and that was right in the midst of COVID, where he was
That's right.
going into the hospitals in New York City, speaking to people behind some kind of plexiglass or something and counseling, because
Yeah, it was still a mystery of what was going on. Is everybody gonna get it?
yeah, people are dying, is helping the people that are dying, helping their families. And I asked him about it because he kind of came up in a way not so dissimilar, as a brahmachari, as a monk. He spent 12 years, I think, or so as a brahmachari in the Bhakti Center. And what made you want to become a hospital chaplain? And he said that those experiences of such deep grief, he said he found them very uncomfortable. And he said, I think there's some value in going to where I'm very uncomfortable. If there's something good to do there and I'm very uncomfortable there, then maybe that's the place I should put myself if I want some growth, some deep spiritual growth. And so he took up an occupation where you're counseling people, you're sharing with people. He's like a modern day Angira or Narda in that sense, where I'm going to enter right when you're cracked open. I'm going to step in there and try to help you. It has to be done with such sensitivity. But in whatever way I can, I want to try to help you with some wisdom that will enrich your life, help you get through the difficult moment, but not just that. That's part of it for sure. Let me help you through this grief, but not only that, but that it can transform your life, that it's not just something you need to get over and get behind you, but it actually becomes that springboard of your own spiritual growth. And someone like that, people, when they feel that, for real, their gratitude becomes so deep to that person. Maybe for a lot of people, that's the one time in their life that a sage entered their life. A real sage with real knowledge entered their life and delivered some insights that could be the most important moments in the entire history of their life.
Yeah, we take these Bhagavatam classes for granted sometimes because we're doing them every day and we're part of this culture. But for a lot of people, it's just sort of like wake up, survive, work super hard, and you don't even have an exhale, a moment, just to reflect. What am I doing here? What is this an important contribution? What is God? Who am I in relationship to God? Where is this all going? And then sometimes it takes that type of tragedy for that saintly person to step in. This whole thing of death doula, Kostuba.
Death doula.
You know that term? A death doula.
Mm-hmm.
It's a thing now. Everyone is becoming a death doula. I think before you become a death doula, you have to become Krishna conscious. What are you going to death doula them to? Just peace? I guess just peace. That's maybe what they did. I just can't see it unless you're Krishna conscious. I want a Krishna conscious death doula. I want you and Mara to be my death doulas. You're not answering. Okay.
Coughing fit over here. Sorry.
You're having a coughing fit. Okay. Mara, will you be my death doula too?
Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you. Okay.
And we got Kelly Skinner, the bright light of Vermont, who's doing
bright
that
light.
Kind of work.
Okay. You can all be it's going to take a team of people to get me back to the spiritual world. Mara, it's 6:55 here. I don't think we should start the next chapter. I think we should.
We'll start tomorrow. Yeah.
Start tomorrow. It's a good spot in the Bhagavatam, isn't it?
Mara, I'm telling you, the next two chapters, such great stuff.
Yeah, I bet. Two saints instruct a king. It's going to be good.
And then the dead boy comes back to life and instructs the king.
And the dead boy comes to life. That's always exciting.
And then the king does his sadhana, sees Lord Vishnu, prays to him, and Lord Vishnu gives him more instructions. It's just great stuff.
You're like next on the Brady Bunch, giving like little teasers of the next episode.
Yeah.
All right, you guys ready for some takeaways?
Bobby and Cindy get lost in the Grand Canyon.
Keep your train on the tracks while the drama surrounds you.
Okay.
Bobby, Cindy. I told them not to wander from the campsite.
Why?
Spirit-
Why must we go to 70s television trivia? I just don't get it. Mara, please.
Spirituality gives meaning and framework to our life.
Yes, it does.
It does.
See yourself in the stories of the Bhagavatam.
Mm-hmm.
See our hope for great joy as Harsha Shoka.
And that's it. Got that flip side.
Mm-hmm.
There's opportunity for reality and great sorrow.
Find the
Okay,
truth.
I like that.
Grief can break your faith in God or faith in the promise of happiness and illusion.
That's right.
Grief can either break your faith in God
Or your
break
faith
faith
in the promise
material
of
world.
illusory happiness. Yeah.
promises of the promises of the material world.
I think you're going to like this next one, Raghu.
Okay, good.
Tragedy can nurture bitterness or divine connection.
It's tragedy.
Tragedy can be a springboard to spiritual life.
Yeah, springboard.
Yep, springboard.
Springboard. Let our saddest moments be the most transformative.
Let's hear that bird again, Raghunath.
There's value and growth in discomfort. And
Just one question.
Sure.
Does Gus kind of whine sometimes too? Does he?
Oh,
If
yeah.
he does, it must
Yes.
be pitiful when he does.
He's
it's
whimpering.
very sad.
Whimper.
Can't get on the couch anymore. He's like, "Arr."
It's got to be heartbreaking to see that.
Hard.
It's sad. All right. And you want
Yeah.
miracles? We got them.
You want miracles? We got them. Joy to the world, Angira has come. The rising.
Imagine
of
that
the
whole.
dead.
You know what, Raghunath? Even everybody, that whole royal entourage that is witnessing all this, they're all going to be there and they're going to watch that child come back to life. Even the co-wives that killed the child, they're going to watch that child come back to life and start giving instruction.
Some might call that child coming back, giving instruction, the resurrection. The resurrection. See, we've had the resurrection going on for a while here. This didn't even happen 5,000 years ago. This was like millennia ago. We've got all these stories. We just need to write the songs. I guess this is a song. There should be songs glorifying those pastimes. Away in the kingdom, laying dead on his bed, the little boy Harsha Shoka laid down his sweet head. The queen came and said the children want to go to play. Little Harsha Shoka lay there dead until
Keep working on it.
Narda and Angira came and made the kid come back to life. Little Harsha Shoka winked his beautiful eyes. He came up and instructed the resurrection of Harsha Shoka.
He said, "I'm not your son. You are not my parent."
Imagine that little kid wakes up and he speaks such heavy truths. Oh my God.
It's like that. If there's anything that was perfectly designed to kill the idea that this is my child, it's when the child comes back to life and says, "These aren't my parents."
Which father? I don't even recognize you.
I had all kind of parents. Who are these two?
Oh man, like that lady. Remember I told you about, we were talking, I gave a class on reincarnation. This lady in Texas. She told me, she raised her hand and said, "Oh my God, this makes so much sense. My 3-year-old daughter sometimes looks at me and says, 'Where's my real mother? I want to go home. I miss my real mother,' and tries to run out of the house. I
Episode
miss
6.
my real family." That's practically right out of the Bhagavatam.
And right out of episode 6 of that television show.
Yes. Right. Surviving Death. Netflix. Docu-series on reincarnation.